Hi, and welcome to my new YouTube channel. My name is Amy, and I am here to talk about books. Hey everyone, thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is my very first YouTube video ever, and I'm not sure where exactly I have been, but I recently discovered BookTube, and I thought to myself, why not? And all the advice that I've seen from people that have their own YouTube channels said just jump in, do it, make a video. So here I am. Today I'm going to talk about my top 5 favorite books of all time. But before I do that, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit since this is the first time you are seeing my face. So here we go. I am Amy. I am in my 30s. And let me tell you, if you are in your 20s or your teens, your 30s are going to be infinitely better than all the other times of your life so far, at least for me. Anyway, I am a teacher. I work in education. Technically, I'm not in the classroom anymore. I am now the literacy coordinator at my school for pre-K through 4th grade about. So the lower grades are my passion, and clearly literacy is one of my passions. I love teaching kids how to read, and that's because reading was something that was hugely important to me when I was a kid and continues to be something that enriches my life, lets me escape when I need to, and just makes me a better and happier person. So once I discovered BookTube, I thought to myself, I have a lot to say about books. I read a lot. So here I am to share my thoughts about books with you guys. This channel is going to be about what I am reading, obviously, but also I'm going to throw in a little bit of educational stuff too. Books that I love to read in the classroom, different books for different categories, like social emotional books, books that are best read alouds for kindergarten versus 3rd grade and things like that. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot coming. My hope is to post at least one video per week. I think that's a good enough goal for right now. I think 2 might be pushing my limits. So we're going to stick to one video per week for now. But like I said, thank you so much for clicking on this video. And let's go ahead and get started with my top 5 favorite books of all time. Okay, so my top 5 favorite books of all time. These are not in any particular order as far as like rank of favorites, but I did put them in the order of books that I read the earliest in my life to books that are more recent. And none of these are actually very recent when it comes down to it. But my favorite book definitely goes all the way back to when I was a really little kid, like probably 4 or 5 years old, before I could read myself. And it's a book that my mom read aloud to me, and that is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. When I first heard this book read aloud, I was just enchanted by the magic of Narnia and the characters and Aslan and just everything about this book. It's still one of my favorites to read aloud to, I think 1st grade was a little too young for it, but my 2nd graders last year loved this book. I read it aloud to them, which was cool because like throwback for my mom reading it to me, and then I read it to my class. I also think it would be appropriate for like 3rd and 4th graders, but I love everything about this book. It is so enchanting, so magical, so special. And I was also obsessed with watching like the 1989 BBC version with the horrible animatronic Aslan. And I also loved the animated version. Thank goodness the 2004 film is perfect. I truly think it is like perfect. I love that movie. I'm so glad that it exists. And that's also really exciting and fun if you read this aloud to a classroom, because after you read it, you can watch the movie, and it's such a faithful adaptation in so many ways that the kids just love it. They were begging to watch the others after, but those aren't as good, so we held off. But yeah, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is definitely the first book that captured me and made me love books. Okay, so my second favorite book of all time, or I should say book series, because I can't possibly pick just one of these, is the Little House on the Prairie series by Laura Ingalls Wilder. These are also books that my mom started off reading out loud to me because I was too young to read. And then when we got into the third or fourth book, I could read on my own, so I read the rest of them by myself. I love these books so much. They hold so many memories for me. In fact, I vividly remember the day that my grandma Jackie pulled up to my house and gifted the entire set to me, because it was a day that really did change a lot of things for me. I loved Laura so much that I'm pretty sure I spent much of my childhood convinced I was Laura. And the things that she writes about in her books, her memories, are so vivid to me that they feel like my own memories. We lived not too far away from Mansfield, Missouri, which is where she spent the last half of her life. And it is open to the public now as a little museum and everything. And we went there when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And Pa's fiddle is there, and so many other artifacts from the books, things that you read about, that you know the story behind. And it was so amazing. I loved it so much. When I saw Pa's fiddle in its case, I cried. I was a kid, but it meant so much to me to see that, because it's so heavily featured in the books, and it is so important in the books and so important to Laura. And I love that memory. I also, this is one of my favorite stories about weirdo Amy as a kid. When we were there, I bought a bonnet because, of course, like Laura, bonnets. And we then went on vacation after we visited. That was our first stop. And I refused to take this bonnet off everywhere we went. And so my parents were so embarrassed, and they made me walk like 10 feet ahead of them everywhere we went, because they just didn't want to be acknowledged that I was with them. You know, I was young, but that's the kind of kid I was. Like, I just didn't care. I wanted to be Laura. I was in my head the whole entire time. I was Laura. So yeah, the Little House on the Prairie series will always be incredibly special to me. The TV show, like, don't care about that. Just the books. My third favorite book of all time is also a series. Is that cheating? I don't know. But again, you can't pick just one of these because it's the Harry Potter series. I am the perfect age that I grew up as the books were being released, and that was so exciting. How many times, never, has it happened that there are midnight release parties for a book? And so many people talking about what is going to happen next, and who's going to make it to the end, and what's going to happen at the end, and who's going to live, and who's going to die. And it was so exciting to be a part of all of that over books. It's something that will probably never happen again, and is so incredibly special that I got to experience that when I was a teenager. And there was just nothing like going to a midnight release party and having all of these other people just as excited as you were, and listening to Muggle cast and Potter cast and all of that stuff. It was just a really special time. It was really exciting. It was really fun. And the books are brilliant. They mean a lot to so many people for so many different reasons. And I love them. And the experience of reading them as they were released is just unmatched. I don't love what J.K. Rowling has said recently and the views that she has expressed. And that has, I would say, maybe soured the books a little bit for me. But I'm trying to just love the books for what they are and put her out of it, even though that is a little difficult because J.K. Rowling herself was also so important and intriguing as far as these books went. So that is definitely something that's really disappointing about these books recently. But again, trying to look past it and just love them for what they are and for what they brought to me, and how much I loved them and looked forward to them when they were new. So, anyway, my fourth favorite book is one that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, but I read it when I was a teenager, and just, I adored it. I adored everything about this book. And that is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. If you're unfamiliar with this book, it is kind of the true story of Dracula, or the real Dracula from history, Vlad Tepes, and how that real life story and the myth of Dracula have like become intertwined, and what is real and what isn't. And it's mysterious, it's scary, it's beautifully written, and it's another book that really like takes you to a different place. I'm finding that that's kind of my thing. I like books that, I guess, really transport you and take you out of your everyday life and put you somewhere else. And to me, like, this book just totally did that. I was really unfamiliar with this part of the world, which is like Turkey, Istanbul in particular, and the way that Elizabeth Kostova describes this setting and the mystery of this place, and it made Istanbul like go onto my bucket list of places that I want to visit before I die, because it just sounds so incredibly interesting. This book also made me take a class in college on the history of the Byzantine Empire. If you like mystery, if you like the whole myth of Dracula, if you like history, then you should read this book. I recommend it to a lot of people. Not everyone loves it as much as I do, but a lot of people really do see that, like, oh yeah, that was a really good book, that was a really good read, I couldn't put it down, I just kept wanting to know what happened next, and that's how I felt. And I still reread it every once in a while, even though the mystery of it is gone, just because I love the way it's written so much. So yes, definitely The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. Pick it up if you haven't read it yet. Okay, so my fifth, and definitely my actual favorite, number one favorite book on this list, is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. There are so many different reasons that I love this book, but I think the biggest reason why I love it is because it is a comfort read to me. Whenever I am going through something, whenever I'm feeling down, I always want to pick up Jane Eyre and read it. And that's probably because as a character, Jane Eyre is just put through the ringer, as are most of the Bronte sisters' characters. But also, I love this book because I really love the Bronte sisters. I love learning about their lives and who they were as people. And they lived such sheltered lives where they didn't really get to do or see much of the world, but they had this incredibly rich and interesting inner world. And that is just fascinating to me, how books like Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights could come from people that didn't know a whole lot about life. And Jane Eyre was revolutionary for its time. It was one of the first feminist novels. Some people would disagree that it's feminist now. I think it is. But I just love this book. It's drama central, which is something else I love. And I love the characters. I love the romance. I love the mystery. I love debating about this book and the merits and the things that people find wrong with it. I like debating about it, and I see both sides of the aisle here. But I just love this book. I love everything about it. I love, again, it takes you to a different place. It's so haunting to me, and I just love this book. I also really love Wuthering Heights, but Jane Eyre is my favorite over it. I think the drama factor. Like Wuthering Heights is so dramatic and so just sad and heartbreaking that I love Jane Eyre more because it is a happy ending, and it does end in a hopeful note. You know, everything turns out okay for her in the end. And like I said, when I'm going through something, this is a book that I love to pick up, and it probably is for that reason, because it leaves me with a sense of hope. Thank you so much for watching my top 5 favorite books of all time. Please click the bell and subscribe before you leave. And if you would like to follow me on social media, my Instagram is linked below. My plan is to post at least one video per week for right now. I have lots of ideas on different videos that I would like to film, and I hope you stick around to watch them in the future. Thank you so much. Bye.